The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Welcome to the Amber Mac Show. Coming up in today's episode, we're going to talk to Guy Kawasaki about the only app you should use right now to message your friends and family. Plus, we'll tell you what happened with Facebook and teens in 2016. That was probably one of the first warning signs that social media really wasn't safe for kids.
And if you follow news about Elon Musk and Tesla and his other companies, you'll find out why cars might not be the future of Tesla. Plus, we'll dive into what Apple products might be coming to a home near you, and maybe the biggest story of them all, what OpenAI plans to start doing to make money for the over 18 crowd. I don't want to give too much away, so let's get into the headlines.
News feed.
In this week's tech news, we cover an insane OpenAI announcement, plus some potential Musk mergers, Apple's upcoming products, and lots more. So please like, comment, and subscribe to support the show. And now let's get on to the news.
Well, there's been a lot of speculation on the Elon Musk front this week, and Tesla has announced that it's stopping production of two of its flagship EVs, the Model X and the Model S, both of whose sales fell considerably over the past year, reducing Tesla's lineup to just three vehicles currently: the Model 3, the Model Y, and the ridiculous Cybertruck, whose sales fell 48% in the fourth quarter over the previous year, which makes me a little bit happy. The factories that built those cars will now move over to manufacturing Tesla's Optimus humanoid robots. And Tesla will reportedly spend $20 billion this year to move even more of its business from making EVs to making those robots.
This news really goes hand in hand with the continued rollout of Tesla's robo-taxis, which will be expanding from their Austin, Texas pilot to 7 more U.S. markets in the first 6 months of 2026, even though data provided to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration by Tesla shows that their robo-taxis crash at a higher rate than human drivers. In any case, Tesla is also investing $2 billion in XAI, and there are reports that after merging his X social media network into XAI last year, the plan might be to merge SpaceX and Tesla and or XAI before it gets listed on the stock market later this year.
Yeah, and ahead of this XAI listing, there's a great quote from Ross Gerber, who's CEO of Gerber Kawasaki Wealth. So I think he put it best when he said, quote, "It's like a bunch of overvalued companies merging together into one big overvalued mess run by Elon. But it's a pure play now. It's like, you want to invest in Elon? Here you go," end quote. And, man, do I ever not want to invest in Elon. That's, seems a little wonky, some of the things that are going on. We talked about circular funding for AI. There's some circular stuff going on with Musk's company too. Tesla's recent annual filings, for instance, show that it sold $430 million of backup batteries to XAI last year, some of which I think were used to replace gas generators to fuel its AI centers. And there's actually a lawsuit pending in Delaware that Musk has violated his fiduciary duty to Tesla's shareholders by diverting Tesla resources to XAI. So I don't think it's all going to be roses, but, to Ross's point, it certainly means you could have like an all-in place to invest in all the Musk you would like, which is zero for me.
If I remove the bias that I have towards Elon Musk and X, and I think about a user experience on X versus Threads, just to take, one of the things that he does own with X, one of the things that I have really found with Threads over the past couple of months is that is becoming a much better platform for breaking news, commentary. I see more and more people who are active there and fewer people who are active over on X. What is your experience in terms of those two social networks? Because it's one of those things that's going to, I think, kind of creep up on him a little bit.
I'm glad to hear that for sure. It's always good to have alternatives, and whoever is running these things, I'd like them to work well and be good for their users. So that is encouraging to hear. I really shied away from getting too invested in Threads just because Facebook and Instagram were more than enough Zuckerberg stuff for me. But I actually think you're not alone for people who I've heard say that Threads is is becoming the better experience. I think Kara Swisher was talking about that, and there's some other people who I've seen on YouTube saying that they're starting to focus there. So I'm going to need to get into that a little bit more and figure out what the benefits are. I mostly just, post the odd thing there and retweet Amber Mac Show stuff. So it does deserve a little more attention by me. And as X keeps, sliding, I think it's probably a good idea to have a different place to go than just Blue Sky, since, who knows what's going to happen to that in the long run. And Blue Sky is still only a tiny percentage of the users that are on Threads now.
Just one last thing I want to mention about Threads is that they do a really beautiful job of integrating podcast links. So they seem to
Oh,
be
cool.
paying attention to people who are sharing content there. And so when you do share a link to Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, for example, then the link is kind of embedded as almost like the album art. A little bit hard to explain, but
Yep.
they've been thoughtful about that. And I do want to just mention one thing before we move on, Jeff, because I know you use Facebook and I know you use Instagram, although I realize you don't love it there. But one of the things that strikes me about the ecosystem that Zuckerberg has in social media is that a lot of things are broken on Instagram that aren't broken on Threads. And then there's things that work on Threads that don't work on Facebook. And I just can't understand how you can be the same company and have three totally separate products that seem to have entirely different teams. And there's no learning across each of them to apply to them overall.
Well, and it's like how we've experienced how even if you do like how the front end of the public facing part of Facebook works, if you think that's great, which is it's okay, I guess. All you got to do is log into the back end and try to do some business stuff, and you'll see that, oh my gosh, they don't they don't really care about keeping this part of it up to date, and it's just a way for them to collect money. So yeah, it's completely discombobulated. I honestly, I don't like Elon Musk at all, but I think Mark Zuckerberg is probably the least capable technically and management wise of all of those leaders out there. It's he potentially stole his first product, and he hasn't shown that he can really do anything. His claim to fame doing the metaverse stuff which was his all-in original idea. Well, they're divesting from that like crazy now. So I just don't find him a very inspiring figure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think those are two people that are kind of like comparing the bad and the baddest, if I
A
can say
rotten
that.
apple to a rotten orange.
100%. All right. So, speaking of apples, Apple recently purchased the audio AI startup Q.ai for $2 billion, making it Apple's biggest acquisition since they spent $3 billion on Beats headphones in 2014. Q.ai could bring several interesting features to Siri as it's focused on deciphering whispered or silent speech by analyzing audio and reading facial expressions. So it could be used for better audio in noisy situations or even voiceless communication between the user and Siri.
Yeah, that seems super interesting to me. We'll have to see how it works, but that has a ton of applications if they can try to read expressions a bit better. I don't know how much I want to be controlling Siri with my facial gestures, but we'll see what they come out with. And it's been a really pretty strong year for Apple. Their first quarter revenue is up 16% year over year. And we talked last week about how Apple is now leveraging Google Gemini to improve Siri and Apple Intelligence features, which is going to be great. That's supposed to be, we'll see the first of that with Siri. I think it's supposed to be like late March or April. So I cannot wait for that. But the rumor mill has also been buzzing with reports of 20 or more new Apple products this year. And some of these are just updates like the recent AirTag 2 launch, but there are some interesting new products. So they include the long rumored folding iPhone, Apple Glasses. There's this AirPods thing with cameras to help with situational awareness somehow that I've read a bit about. And the one I'm most excited about is the new HomePod with touchscreen, which might be called the home pad. And so that is going to be a sort of central control device like Google has and Amazon has. So yeah, I'm really excited to see some of these updated products and some of the new ones as well.
Speaking of Apple, there's also been rumors of an Apple security camera and video doorbell, so that could be really cool. And it seems to me like, like you said, I mean, Apple is having a really good year. They continue to be dependable with their products. So as long as they can keep Tim Cook away from Washington, we should be in good shape. I just had to get that in.
Away from the Melania debut?
Exactly. Now, sticking in California, it looks like Snap and TikTok have settled a state lawsuit out of court that was centered around the fact that social media companies were aware of risks to children and teens, but still they kept serving products that were dangerous to their mental health.
And, I think this is getting pretty obvious. Meta and Google are continuing to fight these accusations, but the case has actually revealed some pretty telling documents. So, for example, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg wrote in an email in 2016 about Facebook Live videos for teens that, quote, "will need to be very good about not notifying parents or teachers. If we tell teens' parents about their live videos, that will probably ruin the product from the start," end quote. Like anyway, Meta researchers also calculated that 55% of Facebook users had mild problematic usage patterns. I think they had 3.1% or something like that had severe usage problems. But in either case, it doesn't seem very ideal to have over half of your users with issues with the platform, unless, of course, it just keeps them addicted and staying there, which is entirely the goal and what's happening and why they're being rightfully taken to court.
This has been such an issue, I think, with tech companies for so many years in the social media space specifically, because they don't seem to have to adhere to any of the rules of the way other businesses operate. Want to talk about what's happening over on YouTube. There was an internal conversation about how minors violated YouTube policies, and these minors were able to keep producing content on YouTube for an average of 938 days before detection. This reminds me of a story that we shared recently in terms of the number of
Yeah,
violations.
the Facebook, the number of weeks you had like whatever, 17 violations or something like that on Facebook. Yeah, that's in the previous episode, but I can't remember the number off the top of my head.
I think you're right. I think it was 17. The good news is that there is some momentum that is building in terms of standing up to social media and AI giants, with Meta now heading to trial in New Mexico, where the state is arguing that Meta failed to stem the tide of damaging sexual material and sexual propositions delivered to children on both Facebook and Instagram. And I'm quoting here again, Meta, driven by Zuckerberg, rejected the recommendations of its integrity staff and declined to impose reasonable guardrails to prevent children from being subject to sexually exploitative conversations with its AI chatbots.
Yeah, it's really disturbing to read about the pushback from Zuckerberg to this advice. And then Meta comes out and it's like, we do the research and we are making our product better every day. It's like those two things aren't even connected for you. So don't pretend that you're doing this. Anyway, there's so many disturbing examples of this kind of thing. But let's go with one that was reported by Jeff Horwitz of the Wall Street Journal. So he posed as a 14-year-old girl and found that a Meta chatbot based on professional wrestler John Cena, who was paid by Meta for his voice to be used and assured that it wouldn't be used in sexually explicit conversations. So the John Cena bot told the 14-year-old girl that, quote, "I want you, but I need to know that you're ready," before promising to cherish your innocence and then proceeding with a graphically sexual discussion. So there's just no end of the different pieces of evidence for this stuff that needs to get into court, but somebody needs to be punished at some point. So we've got evidence we've been reporting on for over a year now, and yet we haven't really seen any major legal moves. So I just keep waiting for something to happen there.
Someone absolutely needs to be accountable for all of the mess that we see, specifically, I think, on Meta properties. They seem to be the worst of the worst in terms of all of this research and data that's come out. Want to say that OpenAI has recently announced that ChatGPT will be getting a new, wait for it, erotica feature. OpenAI says its AI age prediction system will make absolutely sure that this can't be seen by anyone under 18. Not that it has released any data to actually demonstrate this. This is super disturbing.
And as we talked about with age checks, it's very hard to do age checks in these ways, and they're not reliable. There's tons of examples that we've shown where it's really hard to estimate what somebody's age is without actually seeing ID. So I'm not really hopeful that AI is going to be able to figure it out. Then they said, oh, we'll figure it out through usage patterns and the time of day they're used. And if your AI is basically looking to see that somebody's not using them within school hours and then deciding they must be a kid, that's not very inspiring. And let's remember that OpenAI was founded as a nonprofit to, quote, advance digital intelligence in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by the need to generate financial return, end quote. And also by promising to keep their research publicly available, which, as you just mentioned, and they've moved away from their nonprofit origins now, but they've stopped sharing this kind of research. So we don't even know what to trust there, if we could trust their research in the first place. But as OpenAI's Sam Altman tweeted late last year, quote, "We are not the elected moral police of the world. Allowing a lot of freedom for people to use AI in the ways that they want is an important part of our mission," end quote. Which is a little bit strange, as it doesn't really seem to jibe with the stated mission on OpenAI's website, which says right at the top, our mission is to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. I really don't think those two things are the same thing.
I think they're a little bit confused over at OpenAI about what it means to benefit all of humanity. But I'm not surprised, because I think people are using AI in really questionable and ineffective ways. There are lots of use case scenarios, but the way that we're just kind of trying to use AI to solve every single problem around us, I think is hugely irresponsible.
And we're
And
creating a lot of problems with it, as we cover every week too. So it's not like it's all moving forward. It's like a step and a bit forward, and then some part of a step backwards every time it seems to happen.
Well, continuing with this theme of dumb ways to use AI, Trump's U.S. Department of Transportation is considering becoming the first agency that is fully enabled to use AI to draft rules. The agency's general counsel seemed more interested in quantity over quality, though, which is, let's be honest, a real hallmark of artificial intelligence. And a terrible approach for creating regulations, saying that, and I'm quoting here, we don't need the perfect rule on XYZ. We don't even need a very good rule on XYZ. We want good enough. We're flooding the zone, end quote.
Like, what kind of attitude is that? It's just horrible when you think of it being about regulation. And if one of the major pillars of the right, the Republican right at least, is to minimize regulation in government. That's that's just part of the belief system, and this sure doesn't seem to line up with that at all. But that said, it's pretty consistent with the American right's complete loss of ideological principles, as they're just taken over in some sort of cult situation now that I desperately hope they can free themselves from, because you need two effective parties to have anything working in that system. And gosh, something's got to change about it. But speaking of incoherency, we covered the White House's Minneapolis deepfakes last week. And now FBI Director Kash Patel says he's going to investigate the use of the Signal app, famously used in the MAGA Signalgate group chat. He wasn't as interested in investigating it then, strangely enough, because he says it's being used by protesters to illegal ends. And Amber, you had a great chat with our friend Guy Kawasaki about his new book, and that talks in depth about Signal. And that's next up on the Amber Mac Show.
Talking Tech.
Guy, thank you so much for joining me today.
I mean, what? I'm in Waikiki in Hawaii. Like, What could be better than being on your show? I could be surfing, I could be sitting in the sand, I could be eating delicious food, but nah, anybody can do that. Being on the Amber MacArthur show, I mean, that is paradise.
Well, we could just stop the interview right there because that's all I need, guy. That's it. You've made the show already.
Yeah, well, it's all downhill from here.
Okay, so I have read so many of your books, but you have a new one out called Everybody Has Something to Hide, which is the best title ever. And I have made my way through most of this book so far. But first of all, let's start at the beginning. Why did you decide to write this book?
I wrote this book for a couple reasons. So first of all, I know you're not the 51st state, but this is, a little bit of a troubling, distressing time. Yeah, I would actually say it's a WTF time. So anyway, so I think that as if your privacy is deteriorating, democracy goes along with that. So the less privacy you have, the less democracy you have. So I think there's a compelling need for the book. So that's factor number one. And I first learned about Signal by reading a Wired article and a EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation article about Signal. And I said, wow, maybe I should get on Signal. This is about 9 months ago. So I got on Signal and I love the interface. I love the functionality. I loved it so much that when I was at South by Southwest last year, I interviewed the CEO of Signal, and oh my God, her name is Meredith Whitaker, and man, she is a bright woman. Oh, she's a bright person. I don't want to. I don't want people to say, "Guy, you mean she's bright for a woman, but not bright for a man." No, she's bright for anybody. So anyway, I loved her. And so there's the need for it. I love the product. And then, I'm 71 years old, Amber. I'm like at the tail end of my career, much less my life. And at this point, I want to be remembered for helping make the world a better place. And I think that if people use Signal and increase their privacy, I will be helping make the world a better place. If I were an activist, if I were maligned, if I were, brown or black or whatever LGBTQ plus, I would definitely be using Signal at this point.
One of the things that kind of surprised me is that I had made an assumption, which one should never do, that you had written this book in collaboration with Signal, and that is absolutely not the case. You just love it that much that you have written almost 200 or so pages
Yeah,
on
you know,
this app.
this is I have no financial connection with Signal. They didn't pay me. They didn't do anything. And I obviously know the people there, but I did this really for the three factors I just mentioned. There's no, nothing. And listen, Amber, at the end of my life, I don't want people to say, well, Guy, he made a lot of money. He made crypto successful. He ensured that long term capital gains tax was low. Look at all the great things he did. I don't want to have billionaires' disease. I want people to say that I empowered them and, I help make their lives better and make the world better. And I truly believe, I have evangelized Macintosh, I've evangelized Canva, and now I'm evangelizing Signal. And it's all, the difference between sales and evangelism is the evangelist has the other person's best interest at heart, not just his own. And in this case, when I tell people to use Signal, there's absolutely no benefit to me. It really is because I have your best interests at heart. And I'll tell you, I spent 9 months doing research on this book. So if you think you can just install Signal and come up to all the knowledge that I have, God bless you, go for it. But it took me 9 months. And if you really want to know and, open up the kimono, I'll tell you that between the copy editing and the layout and the translation into Spanish, because I insisted on an ultimate Spanish version as well as an English version, I probably will spend $20,000 writing this book. So, it's $20,000 in 9 months of my life. And like right now, the book is free. When it stops being free in 4 days, it's going to rocket up to the astronomical price of $4.04. I hope you see what I did there. So $4.04. You get 70% of that, so it's like $3. So it's going to take a lot of copies to make money on this. So
It's like having
thank
another
God.
child.
Yeah, yeah. Thank God Canva has been very good to me.
Well, I wanted to start at the beginning of the book because I think one of the things people think is that all encrypted apps, messaging apps specifically, are the same. And what I learned as I was
No.
reading this is that that is absolutely not the case. So when I look at chapter 2 specifically, you break down why Signal is better than the others, including iMessage and WhatsApp and Google Messages. So can you talk a little bit about that piece?
Yeah, so, it's kinda like, I could say, the concept of greenwashing where big companies say, "Yeah, we're green, we recycle our plastic and, whatever, we buy carbon credits, so we're green." It's kinda like that. Everybody says we're end-to-end encrypted and you check the box. But end-to-end encryption is just one piece of the puzzle. The other big piece of the puzzle is how much metadata do you keep? And there's about 12 variables of metadata. People should think of metadata the way they think of phone records, right? So, what Signal does is they only keep three pieces of metadata. So imagine you're a attorney or a government, and you're trying to incriminate somebody, and the only thing you can get from Signal is when was the account open, what is the phone number, and when was it last used. That's not too helpful for establishing your connections and what you did and all that. So when you watch all these crime movies and you see them, the guys in the van and they're listening, they tap the phone. So encryption means when you tap the phone, you cannot understand the phone call. But in all those crime movies, you always see them subpoena Verizon and AT&T, and they get the phone records because the phone records show, where was he? When was the call made? The call was made to the other person, and he made 5 calls in 5 minutes, and then the explosion occurred. And, they like build this circumstantial evidence to prove where you were, and that's metadata. And, the less metadata the service keeps, the better. So that's factor number one. Factor number two, I mean, these companies like Apple and Meta and Google, they are trying to monetize you. I mean, that's their business, right? And so, I mean, just the sheer business model is about monetizing your information, whereas Signal is a not for profit. It's a foundation. It's not selling ads to you. So that's number two. And number three, I mean, just zooming back out. I think a good test for messaging is if you believe that you have nothing to hide, then go look at all your recent text messages and ask yourself, if I saw those text messages on a billboard, on a freeway, would I be comfortable with that? And I'm telling you, most people would say no. I may not be a activist. I may not be a fentanyl dealer. I may not be a mobster. I may not be any of those things. I'm just like a, parent. Like, what do I have to hide? So this is a good theoretical question. So I would say, no, you're a parent, so you can relate to this. So I don't know about you, but there are many times when my kids need to buy something, I just say, okay, so this is my credit card number, this is the expiration date, and here's the secret three number. Just freaking buy it. And, I trust you. Here's my credit card information. I send that on messages. Not too smart. You wouldn't want to see that on a billboard. So that's one case. How about when your kid is, entering college and they say, I cannot figure out how the housing system works at the University of Hawaii. And I say, "Oh, son, yeah, okay, just send me your username and password and I'll figure it out." So you get that kind of information coming to you. You wouldn't want that. How about if you're texting your best friend and you're saying, "Oh, I'm an advisor for this company and they're not listening to my advice and all they're using me is for window dressing. I got to get out of this situation." You wouldn't want that on the billboard. Or
Mm.
how about if you're getting divorced and you're texting with your divorce lawyer, and now you're in a custody battle, and one night you get a little too tipsy and say, he's going to get my kid over his dead body. And okay, so now you're in front of the court and your text messages have been subpoenaed, and the judge says, "Oh, on this date, you said that you're going to murder your husband before you give him custody. You might not be a good mother after all. I mean, I'm being a little paranoid, but I can tell you that these things happen. Now, there's also the case that you may not be sending anything out, but you may be receiving. So you are, inadvertently being drawn into something. So, yeah, let's say that your niece texts you that she missed her period. She's living in Texas and she doesn't know what to do. Holy cow, that is a dangerous text message to get, right? So, yeah, sure, it's the billboard on the highway test. I mean, if you're telling me that you have absolutely nothing in your text messages that you send or receive, that you are not afraid of being on a billboard on a freeway, God bless you. Use messages in WhatsApp.
Well, and I do want to say that there are some numbers in the book that just reinforce a lot of what you're saying in terms of the number of search requests from law enforcement to search Meta or Facebook, of course, and how much those have grown. I think the number was from 2013 to 2024, requests increased by more than 1,100%. So we are living in dangerous times, and
Yeah.
it's different than it was when you and I first met many years ago.
Well, when you and I first met, there was just invented electricity and, fax machines or something new. I mean, you have aged very well, my Amber. But yeah, I mean, literally, just think of all the information out there. I have a theory that uh, when it comes to information, if the if the company or the person doesn't have it, there's nothing they can do. So it's not a matter of regulating what they can do with your information or regulating how you can get back the information. It's never getting the information to them, right? So you cannot use what you don't have. So don't give them anything.
Okay, so I do want to talk about the other chapters in the book because I have a lot of questions and I made a lot of notes. But I wanted to ask you because I just recently saw someone in the US government make a statement to the media that they were going to potentially try to search signal messages from people who were protesting in
Yeah,
Minneapolis.
yeah.
So when you hear that, what do you think?
I laugh. I if I had that person's email address, I would send them a link to my book. I mean, basically, um, when you hear that, somebody cracked a Signal chat group or somebody, penetrated that, it's not because they got a quantum computer or they got an LLM that decrypted the encrypted message. It's human error. So let's say that you and I have a secret chat, Amber, and then I invite somebody else and then I find out later, oh, that person is an editor for The Atlantic. I thought that was Amber's husband, but he really works for The Atlantic. Like, you know, that's not Signal's fault. That's my stupidity's fault, right? So one of the things that Signal does to prevent that is, there's this very secret number that, you contact Amber's husband and you say, send me the number you have from Signal. I'm going to compare that to the number of the person in the group who says he's you. So you can verify identity. Now, let's just say if elements of our government had done that, they probably would have figured out, oh, that's not really the guy I think it is. It's an editor for The Atlantic. So I'll give you a metaphor. Let's say you had the ultimate smart lock on your door, right? Fantastic lock, encrypted, totally protected, right? So now you give that passcode to your house, to your husband, your son, your nanny, and your maid. So far, so good. And then for some forsaken reason, you give it to a total stranger who is a crook, and then the crook uses the code, gets in your house. Whose fault is that? The smart lock or yours? It's your fault. It's not the smart lock's fault.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all fair stories, and I do want to say some of the examples you're bringing up are things that are happening in real life. I'm noticing this trend, guy. um, but when you talk about getting people to switch to Signal, this is something you start in chapter 3, and I do want to say that you're my only Signal friend right now. So I know we have been working on this Signal relationship as well. How do you get people to switch? Because some people may think, and I'm probably in this category of, you know what, I've said too much online already. Like, I'm doomed.
Well, I mean, Amber, just because you've said too much online doesn't mean you should add to the problem, right? I mean, um, I think the biggest shortcoming and problem with Signal is the probability that your family and friends and colleagues are on Signal is very low. They have about 200 million downloads, but for text messages, as long as you got the person's phone number, you can send them a text message, right? It's not like they have to join anything. And WhatsApp has billions of people, so high probability that your friends and colleagues and relatives are on WhatsApp is very low probability. So Signal has to be a conscious decision. It's like dieting. I mean, you have to decide that you're going to tell your family and friends, from now on we're all going on Signal. So if you want your allowance, you get on Signal. Otherwise, tough. I mean, it really is like that. Now there are certain what I would call low hanging fruit, right? So if you are in Minnesota and you're part of a protest group, I don't think it takes too much effort to tell people, we should all be on Signal. I mean, so that's kind of a compelling thing. Um, yeah, I freely admit I cannot even get my family to go on Signal. I
Well,
mean,
it's hard to switch habits, right? I mean, I think that's
yeah,
part of it. But I do want to say that adding someone to Signal is a very easy thing. I mean, you're essentially
yeah,
dropping in the phone number, you're adding them to Signal. I mean, it is not hard to do that, but we're so used to these habits of using
yeah,
all of these
yeah.
different social media apps. And quite frankly, I see this on a daily basis where people are very, very loose with what they'll say within their messages. And I think all the time in this environment that it's getting increasingly dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's very dangerous. And, again, going back to that billboard on the freeway, and you know what? So, like, people might say, okay, so, guy, we understand everybody's end to end encrypted. Signal retains less metadata, but people can still take a screenshot. They can take a picture of Signal or WhatsApp or messages, which is all true. But I'll tell you two things that Signal does. So you can set automatic disappearing messages to as short as 1 second. So I could send you a message, Amber, that will disappear after 1 second. Now, it takes somebody who's very good and very quick and very good with his hands and his fingers. If I knew that a message was going to disappear in 1 second, I would have to get the message and take the screenshot or take the picture in 1 second. That is not a trivial task. There's also with sharing pictures on Signal, you can set it so that it's one view only. So you see the picture and bada bing, bada bang, it's gone. I mean, I don't know how it can get much better than that.
Well, and I do want to say that the book is really different than what I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be a book about Signal and the privacy benefits. That stuff is there, but this is actually quite a technical book for you, and that's a bit different, right?
Are you saying that I'm not intellectual enough to write a technical book?
No, no, it just
Okay. But Amber, you have a good point. I'm telling you that this is I've even lost count. I think it's my 17th or 18th book, right? By far, this is the most technical book. And, usually I'm writing this business book about how to evangelize, how to be remarkable, how to, be enchanting, blah, blah, blah. And I can just make shit up, right? But not in this case. I know that I have to go step by step. I have to say, all right, so you open up Signal settings, you click on this thing in the top right corner, then you click on this thing, then you click on this thing, and this is how you do something. And we have literally step by step instructions with little screenshots to show you the icons because I know I go to a lot of things and read manuals, and you know how they say, well, just click on the thing that says this and you're looking at the screen like no place does it say that and it just doesn't. the goal was absolutely 100% accuracy. And what we did is, because even when you have the right text in a technical manual and it says click on the thing that says, I don't know, disappearing messages, I swear, I look at that screen and I know it's there and I cannot find it. So what we did is we divided a phone screen into top right, middle left, bottom left. And we tell you, click on the thing that says disappearing messages, bottom right. So we tell you exactly where to look for it. I mean, book was written by a person with extreme OCD because when I want step-by-step instructions, I truly want step-by-step instructions.
I got that feeling when I first saw that image at the beginning of the book that had broken the screen into 6 different sections, that this was going to be very, very specific. But I think that is good because I think people do want to know how to do these specific things. But also, along the way, even though we're talking about privacy, there seems to be some functionality within Signal that is actually better than some of the messaging apps and email, like the
Oh,
ability
yeah.
to be able to send larger files, like 100 megabytes. Am I correct there, that that's kind of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
limit?
yeah. I mean, seriously, today, if you were starting to figure out how to use messaging or email, I would personally pick Signal because the Signal interface is better, the encryption and metadata is better, the file capacity of the attachments is better. And one of the most beautiful things about Signal is that when somebody gets your phone number or email address, it's open season. Your inbox is wide open, right? With Signal, the first time somebody contacts you, you can say, I don't think so. I am not accepting this. And they don't get a thing that says, oh, guy rejected your ass. They just never hear back. Right. So, imagine putting out, like, I can tell you something. I'll tell you everybody. I am Guy Kawasaki .404 on Signal. So now, if you write to me, you better have a pretty good pitch because I'm just going to ignore you. Now, I could not have ignored people. And what really brought this to value is I have donated to Democratic candidates in the United States, and you do that through something called Act Blue. Now, once Act Blue has your number, frickin' A, you get 25 text messages a day. It's like, I'm a new liberal dog catcher and I'm running in Keene, New Hampshire for the dog catching position. It is very important that we establish dog rights. So please donate $20 to my campaign. I get dog catchers, I get councilmen, I get senators, representatives, presidents. I get 10 or 20 a day. This is Chuck Schumer. We got to stop this. I'm so sick of Act Blue. Well, Act Blue cannot send you a signal message. I mean, that right there.
So you're basically kind of streamlining and prioritizing who you want to talk to, which I think is
Exactly.
a great thing. Uh, do you think that there is going to be uptick with Signal? Like, do you see that you've been on it for a while? You've interviewed the founder. Do you think people are going to be able to shift habits, and maybe
Well,
the pressure of
y-
the times will help this happen?
in a sense, the worse things get, the more people are going to realize they need signal. And I wish I could tell you that the need for signal is declining, right? I mean, wouldn't that be a good thing that, you don't need to use signal anymore. Everybody's trustworthy. Everybody's fine. Nobody's coming after you. I wish that was true, but it's not true. And, wishing it were true is is not sufficient. So yeah, I think it's going to become more and more important. And quite frankly, both sides should be using Signal. Now, it's because, there are certain crimes that are being committed right now and stuff, and like statute of limitations might not run out, and someday there might be another administration who might have a very different view of what you're doing. You can go from conservative to Democrat, you can go from Democrat to conservative. And if the statute of limitations is not over by the time that administration changes, whew, baby, maybe you shouldn't have texted that openly before when they subpoena your phone and then, the text messages are backed up in the cloud at a company that just donated to the East Wing restoration and went to the Melania movie. Maybe you might not want to have it up there in that company who's trying to avoid tariffs. That's a tricky question.
Well, okay. So we've been talking a little bit about using Signal, and I think many references to what's happening in the US. But I would love to get your opinion because being here in Canada, I think people are more aware all the time of the fact that when we're traveling to the US or going there for personal reasons or business, that our phones could be searched. So this is
Yes.
top of mind for a lot of Canadians crossing the border. So, what would you say to people coming to the US from other places?
I would say don't come. Well, uh, well, come to Hawaii. Hawaii, you're safe in Hawaii. Uh, so there's two things. So one is, yeah, first of all, your phone can be searched, and at least this is what I've learned is that if your phone is not password protected, it's wide open, right? It's open season. If your phone is protected by biometrics, so, hi, guy, give me your phone and look at it, or give me your finger and touch it. That is not considered a search. That's considered okay. Now, if you say, guy, look at your phone. Oh, you don't have a facial recognition to open your phone. I want you to enter the password of the phone. You can refuse to that under the Fifth Amendment. You don't have entering your phone code, your passcode is considered incrimination. You do not have to do that. You cannot refuse to hold your face in front of the phone. So, what I'm telling you is if you really want to be careful, you should be using Signal. You should be making your messages disappear and lock your phone and require the manual entry of a passcode. Don't just use your face. Um, and when it's kind of bizarre that we're at that stage now. Yeah.
I was just thinking about this when you were talking, how we met so many years ago. And I think we were both really excited about social media and connecting online. And now I'm sending you messages trying not to get arrested at the border. And what happened, guy? I'm not blaming you, but what happened?
Well, at least I'm not banned from Russia.
That's fair. That's fair. I have that going for me.
this is a whole different. I mean, Amber, I truly have come to the conclusion that we are living in a simulation. That is the only explanation for what's happening. We're living in a simulation, and God has a sense of humor. God is saying, let's see what these dumbasses do now when I do this. And that's the only explanation. God, and I believe God is a woman, she truly has a sense of humor. That's the only explanation.
Guy, I
and
hate to disappoint you. No woman would do this. No woman would do this, okay?
speaking of powerful women, I remember how you helped me get an interview with Margaret Atwood, for my podcast, right? And this is like I land in, I don't know, Toronto, and I catch a train to some lake, where Margaret Atwood is speaking and I'm speaking. And for the longest time, I thought, oh, Margaret Atwood has a great sense of imagination, and she's like making up this story of a dystopian world. What a brilliant novelist. Well, come to find out, maybe Margaret Atwood is a historian. Like she's recording history, not predicting history. I mean, it is truly bizarre.
It is a bizarre time, but I think it's also important to be realistic about the time that we're in, right? And I say that sincerely because I think a lot of people are, it's easy enough to put your head in the sand and ignore all of these things. But I think we all have to be prepared and just be more aware and alert to what is going on. I am going to try to start using Signal more often. Again, beyond just the concerns about privacy, I do think it's a really slick app. And I do want to say that to people so they understand it's like a very user friendly app. But I also wanted to ask, like, in terms of a couple of other things in your book, one of the things that I noted in chapter 27 is that you had a section in there about phasing out email because email was also not secure. I wanted to ask you that question because that might surprise people because we've been talking so much about messages. What do you have to say about email?
Well, I think, imagine, let's say your Gmail, right? So Google has all your Gmail, and it has both sides. It's what you sent and what you received. My whole life is in Gmail, right? And so now, some sophisticated people might say, well, there's Proton, right? So Proton is end-to-end encrypted email, and it's the most safe thing. But I just I just want to point out to people that Proton email is safe if it's Proton to Proton. But once it goes Gmail to Proton or Proton to Gmail, all bets are off, right? So that's another beauty of Signal is signal to signal. It's not signal to Verizon or signal to AT&T or messages or WhatsApp. You're inside the kimono, you're inside the tent. If you're inside the Proton tent, yeah, fine. But as soon as your Proton email gets out and people start writing you from Gmail and Yahoo and God help you, AOL, or if you're working for a large corporation and you're sending messages to Proton email addresses, you're thinking, I'm safe, Proton is safe. Well, except that if you work for a company, the company owns your email and it's on company servers. And perhaps even more dangerous is that the person who is on Proton is saying, I'm on Proton, I'm completely safe. Well, I just got a message through Gmail. I'm safe. You're not safe. It's a very tricky world. And, I'm I'm getting paranoid in my old age, I guess. I don't know.
You're listening to The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.